What's up, everybody? Fellow grounded travelers, quarantined travelers, if you will. It's Eliz and Derek, and as you guys join, let us know that you're there, and just say hi. Let us know where you're at tonight while we take a sip of our wine. Cool.
Put up their screen.
Yeah. So, who all is on? We don't have anybody in the chat yet, but I can see there's a couple folks on already. But I guess we'll cheers real quick.
Hi, look me in the eyes.
Oh, look at you in the eyes. Okay.
And then.
Okay. I did it. Happy Thursday. Hi, Rachel. Hi, Brian.
What is up? SLC in the house.
And the bar cameras
in
are
Michigan.
in Michigan. Derek is
Miss you, Bert.
finishing up some last minute Instagram promotion for this thing, I believe. But since we are live, just wanted to say hey to everybody. Hey, Katie Smith in San Francisco. Oh no, we're not drinking San Francisco wine right now. Usually we do, because Derek's brother used to live in Sonoma County. But today it's Oregon wine. And if you guys are drinking anything, let us know too. But we're looking forward to a great chat tonight. Hi, Stephanie. All right. So, I think we wanted to start out with, as everybody kind of gets your questions all together for what we wanted to talk about with travel. And feel free to submit those in the live chat at any time. But I think there are a couple of hot topics requested for Derek to go over today. Some of the people that requested them, though, aren't on the chat yet, so maybe we'll hold off. We were going to start with them. One of them was Derek's wine arbitrage theory that we keep talking about in all of these chats and on the Walter's World chats, but he never seems to find a moment to talk about it, so we're going to give him that moment. And then Derek also mentioned that he's been knee-deep in learning about preppers, and so I know Megan Morris, who said she might be joining tonight, wanted to hear about Derek's prepper research too. So we'll table that though until some of those folks are on.
Yeah. But instead, we can talk a little bit about what we've been up to this week, I guess, since our last live stream. So, fun fact: I hung some lights up on our pergola in the back, so when we can finally get outside for some like barbecue action, we'll have some light so we can stay out after dark. Bought a propane tank so we can grill outside, even though it hailed today.
It did.
So I guess
this weather
the weather's kind
in
of funky.
Chicago has been insane today. I don't know about where you guys are from, but it's been it's perfectly sunny right now, and about an hour ago it was literally hailing a lot. Luckily not large amounts of hail, but
just a little hail.
Little baby hail. But
there was
it made
a lot
some
of
crazy
it,
noise. Yeah. So it's just been on and off, like sun to rain to hail all day, and it's just one of those really strange ones. But thank you so much, Katie. I like this outfit too. But the so the outfit. Okay, I was thinking
Yes.
we were talking about the wine stuff. I think this was from the Who What Wear line at Target, actually. I love shopping at Target. It's literally one of my favorite places to buy clothes here in the U.S. So I don't know if that's a cool thing to say or not, but it's 100% true.
Where's the cardigan from?
Oh, the cardigan's from Paris. I like to
Ooh la
get.
la.
I like to get. I mentioned this on one of the other live streams. Is whenever I'm in Paris, which I've been very lucky over the past couple of years to have gone several times. I like to pick up clothes there, especially with clothes that have sleeves, because I'm 5'1", and the sleeve length in Paris is slightly shorter than at a lot of the U.S. stuff, a lot of the U.S. stores. So, anyway.
The very bougie wife. She likes to shop in gay Paris.
Okay, well, you're the one that just spent $200 at Home Depot today.
Like a man.
You're like the bougie equivalent for men right there.
Alright, so that's the other thing. I bought houseplants. I decided that during quarantine we could bring some of the outdoors indoors with some real plants, try to clean the air a bit and have something green to look at. So
And he picked them out all by himself because it was a surprise to me. So
that's how I buy things. She doesn't go with me shopping, so that's the gotcha.
That's too funny. Hey, Megan Morris. Hey,
Hey,
Mark
Megan.
Finley. Hey, Alan. Really great to see you all on the chat tonight. And you guys were who we were talking about a couple minutes ago. We wanted to save it until all of you guys were able to join about, we're going over tonight Derek's wine arbitrage theory and Derek's prepper research. Highly requested topics from some of the other live streams.
I don't think it is, but it's fine. But Brian is letting us know that he went to Paris on his Peloton yesterday for a whopping
cool.
30 minutes, and the Champ was packed.
Oh my gosh,
Champs-Élysées.
don't they know that they need to socially distance?
Gotta love Peloton. Very cool.
That's really cool that they have that kind of class. I actually didn't realize that they had urban bike classes too. And I guess, is it a class or is it just a ride? I don't know. But I've heard great things about the Peloton app overall. You can even like subscribe to it if you don't have the bike. And there's classes on the One Peloton app that do like yoga and stuff like that. I haven't tried it myself, but definitely a great quarantine activity, I hear.
Yeah. Mark is saying that he bought 12 bags of decomposed granite at Home Depot today.
Oh man,
So,
somebody buy stock at
there we
Home
go.
Depot. All the dudes are going.
why not? Why not? I mean, honestly, I'm shocked at how much I spent at Home Depot when I went to check out and it said like $200. I was kind of like, I don't feel like I had that much stuff.
Hey, Kathy. Oh yeah,
wow.
so I think Kathy's tried the Peloton app. She's saying that they have great meditations too. That's really great to hear.
She's not even drunk yet.
Stuttering, man.
No. But yeah, no.
On
It's
sip number 2.
sip number 2. Gotta go faster. But yeah, no, it's fun. Got a corn plant and a majestic palm, which I guess majestic palms. Fun fact: in nature, can grow to be like 93 feet tall. I don't think that's how tall the one that I bought is going to get.
No.
Pretty sure we don't have the highest ceilings. So
We also don't have a big enough pot
yeah, the pot's
for
pretty
the
small.
tree. So, but yeah, we're bringing
Okay.
nature inside because we can't go explore much of it outside.
Thought you were going to say we're bringing nature back. We're bringing nature back. No, okay.
Yeah.
Wait, you have some birthday wishes, right?
Oh yeah. Also, just wanted to shout out to Rachel, who's on this live chat tonight, my best friend. It is her birthday tomorrow. So cheers to Rachel. I hope everybody else has a glass at home. But happy early birthday. Yay!
Tink tink.
Birthdays during quarantine are tough, so definitely wanted to give you a shout out.
And there's a birthday today. I don't think she's on, but there's a birthday
Yeah, one of
today
my
as
other
well.
really good friends, who is another bridesmaid of mine, back in the day. Her birthday's today. But yeah, I don't think she's on. I think
So Kristen, happy birthday to you.
yes, happy birthday to Kristen. I think she made herself a funfetti cake with her roommate, who's another good friend.
Nice.
Yeah.
Fancy
But anyway.
girls doing fancy things.
Let's get back to business. So, give the people what they want. Start with your wine arbitrage theory, so we don't keep teasing it any longer.
Okay, so Megan, you'd asked at one point in time about wine arbitrage. I think Al, you'd asked about this as well. So years ago, I watched a Simpsons episode where Homer Simpson goes to the store and he wants to buy a lobster, but the big lobsters are too expensive. So he decides he's going to buy a baby lobster. He's going to feed it and get it big, and then he's going to eat the profit. And it's a hilarious episode. He ends up naming it Snappy or something like that. Just watch it. It's worth it. But that's kind of Pinchy. Exactly, Brian. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You know, it's a
everybody on the edge of their seat.
phenomenal episode. And that's kind of been my philosophy with buying wine, you know, whether abroad or in Sonoma or whatever, is, you know, buying a thing of wine, aging it over time, and then drinking it once it's kind of at its peak year, so that you can have a phenomenal wine and all you have to do is pay to kind of keep it stored over that period of time. And we happen to have the ability to store wine at the right temperature because we have wine refrigerators that we bought. And so I can buy a bottle of wine for, I don't know, $50 when it first comes out, and then by the time we drink it, maybe it would retail for closer to $100, and so we can drink the profit. And that's kind of my philosophy that I got from Homer Simpson, so thank you very much.
And that's what's carried him into signing up for many a wine club at Sonoma Napa wineries in the day.
See, the problem is we go to these wineries, and then I drink wine, and I love it, and I get tipsy, and then I sign up for a wine club, and then, 3 months later we get a shipment of wine, and we are like, oh, hey, that's like a gift we forgot about.
It's a gift
to ourselves.
Yeah, a gift to us.
So we've done that a couple times. We belong to one in Sonoma called Ferrari Carano, and we have another one in Napa called Chateau Montelena that we one of those we only get once a year, one of them we get quarterly, and it's always fun. Brian knows the struggle very well. He's I know that him and his wife have wine club memberships. That
they have a great
are really
one
great.
at a one called Aeon Air.
Aeon Air, yeah.
That's like a really small boutique winery in Napa, and they've shared some wonderful wines with us.
The Grenache from Aeon Air is delicious. Yeah. So, yeah, shut up.
Yeah. For some reason, they just asked me to approve one of your comments. I don't know why.
Yeah.
We need a moderator. Mark Finley. No, I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding.
We don't need moderators at this point.
No, thankfully not.
All right, and Megan Morris, I always get sucked in at wineries. Unfortunately, you can't get wine shipped to your home in Kentucky. That's unfortunate.
Really?
That's unfortunate.
Arizona used to be that way. So my family, it's like, in case it was getting shipped to a household and somebody was underage or something like that is how it was explained to me. But I didn't realize any other states were like that. So that's super unfortunate.
Rachel can't get it in Utah either.
I guess that doesn't surprise me about Utah. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Yeah.
Now that you say it, I'm like, oh yeah, that checks out.
Yeah. Well, the other issue is that the United States is kind of weird because in order to be able to ship things, I think within the United States there's certain laws with like where you can ship it to, and each state has its own laws. So you have to be like certified and all that stuff. So it's kind of hard to even get it shipped to yourself from the winery. A lot of times you actually have to have the winery ship it to a third party distributor who's able to take control of the package.
Yeah.
Or you have to go to a third party to have them ship it rather than the winery. So.
Yep.
And I know if you try to do like UPS or FedEx, I don't know that you're technically allowed to ship it, but if you just give them the box and you don't tell them what's inside of it, they will ship it.
Oh yeah, that happened to us in San Francisco one time. There was some issue with shipping through UPS, like they weren't allowed to do it. So we had to box it we bought the box, took it outside, boxed it ourselves, and we're like,
here you go.
We have to send this package.
Here's 50 pounds of water.
Yeah.
But it all worked out.
I forgot about that actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely research before you go to any wine regions or just wineries in general and want to ship anything, kind of what those local rules are. We ended up buying like a whole case of wine in Italy and a whole case in France and took it back on the plane with us too.
Yeah, we've done that in France. We've done that in Italy. It's always I enjoy it. She doesn't enjoy it because she doesn't like the fact that we have to then lug around like a 50-pound case of wine basically with us everywhere.
Especially at the airport when you already have other luggage. Like, that can be a hassle.
And you're trying to like figure out the like VAT refunds at the last second, and it's always a pain in the butt. So Katie Smith is saying, how does wine tasting in California compare with elsewhere around the world? Any favorites? So we've only really done wine tasting in California. We've done a wine tasting room in Seattle, out in like around Redmond, and then we did France and Italy.
I've also done it in wine country in Virginia, but Derek was not there. It was on a...
And we've done the Hamptons, and we've done wine tasting in the Hamptons with Caroline and Kristen that one weekend. Remember?
Sure.
I was the one on conference calls. Like, okay. I was taking conference
Clearly,
calls from the parking lot.
I enjoyed that a lot because I do not have... I remember going to the Hamptons with those people.
Yeah, it's that one time that we went to the Hamptons with all of them, and...
Oh, I do remember that. I do remember that now. Okay, it's all like
Rachel just said when I broke my toe in the stairs.
Yes, I think that memory.
Rachel broke her toe.
That memory is really strong for me, Rachel. Definitely remember that part of the trip. I think the wine tasting kind of fell by the wayside because of the toe breakage.
No, we still went.
We went, and that was marvelous. Yes, so we've been to a lot of wine tastings in the U.S. Accurate.
I used to also go to a lot of wine tastings.
Oh, and we've been in Indiana.
Yeah, Indiana. We've been to some Indiana ones. We right by Indiana University, there's a vineyard called Oliver Winery, which is sweet wine. If you're into sweet wine, like that's what they kind of have. And when we were like 18
in college, it was
at 18
great.
When we were 21 in college, that was like the place to go. It was romantic and all
Oliver
that kind of stuff. Oliver totally counts. Come on, you buy a wine, you buy a hunk of bread.
Well,
and
you
some
do
cheese.
realize, Brian, it was
So
the
good.
last thing that we mentioned. So,
but yeah, no. So what I would say is that in the U.S., it's very easy to do wine tasting because wine tasting in the United States is fairly straightforward. Kind of every vineyard has kind of professionalized it. They understand how it works. They have a tasting room. You go and you do like a tour of the winery. They show you the grape growing process. You finish it with a tasting where they have a flight of 6 wines. It's very, very easy, straightforward. You come in to transaction basically. And, that's a lot of fun because a lot of times they'll have kind of volunteers or people who this is kind of like their passion project or with the winemakers. So it's people who really care about the wine and all that kind of stuff. So really great, fun time. I always enjoy it. I get a little tipsy, join the wine club. Then maybe we have to cancel the wine club later, but it's always fun.
So
Abroad is different.
Yeah, okay. I just realized we've been more than just France and Italy too. We've also been to Mendoza and Argentina. So we've had several differing wine experiences abroad. Like each country had a different kind of take on how that would work.
Yeah, so let's just start with Mendoza because I think Mendoza was the closest to the United States in terms of kind of how that's set up. We did that through a tour. We got on a bus. We obviously didn't want to go to a bunch of vineyards and drive, so we were on a bus with a bunch of other people. They took us to 3 or 4 vineyards.
And we made sure it was an English-speaking tour.
It was an English-speaking tour, so we could understand what they were talking about. That was a great time. It ended with, each tour, the production facilities and stuff ended with a tasting, so we got to try a bunch of different wines. Then there was an opportunity to buy wines and take them back if we wanted to. Kind of not just Malbecs within Mendoza, but Malbecs and dessert wines and other types of grapes. And it was really nice. It ended with, I think, like a 5-course lunch or something like that, which I may or may not have gotten food poisoning from, but
I
whatever.
did not, and I ate the same thing, so...
You didn't eat the dessert.
Oh, that's true. Because
in fact, I ate your dessert because it was
true.
A bunch of dairy.
Yeah, it was like just straight up cream in a bowl, basically.
Yeah. The next day was not good for me. That was the one time I got. Yeah, that was not good. So that was Mendoza, but that was great. It was really good, like tastings and everything. And then if you look at, if you go to Italy, where you can't really just go to the vineyards unless you sign up in advance, like well in advance. And maybe have somebody who kind of gets you into a place. So a number of the places like Gaia in Barolo and whatnot, you can't just go to the vineyard.
Gaia is spelled Gaja, and it's sold in the U.S. in a lot of places, but it's a very high-end Italian wine. But if you see it anywhere on the shelves, like it's delicious. Highly recommend.
Yeah, very good. So you can't just go to the vineyards. There are some vineyards that you can go to, you can taste, that they have that functionality, and we did that, but not all of them. So you have to kind of look that up in advance and make sure that they have a tasting room or they have a tour option, and sign up in advance because you can't just necessarily knock on the door and just join a tour.
Yeah.
And not speaking the language, the very first tour in Italy that we went to was kind of like, we were looking around for the entrance. We couldn't figure out where to park. We didn't know what was going on. Turned out we missed the whole tour piece of it, but we got to catch the very end when they were doing the tasting. And it was an awesome tasting room that it was a very modern type of thing where they had this whole outlook where you could look over the vineyard and everything. It was very nice and modern. But you just need to know that in advance. France is similar. Um, Oh, but the other thing about Italy, sorry, they have these Enoteca Regionales, which are like regional wine tasting rooms where you can go and try a bunch of different wines.
And
from the region.
enoteca is kind of the word for like a wine room in
Like a wine
Italian.
shop, yeah.
Yeah, and so most of those they'll have like one in each town that covers the entire like neighboring hillside.
Yeah, like that appellation.
Yeah, like of
right?
all of the vineyards on that hillside. And then you can go to that place and they'll give you a tasting of like a few that you might request. And they
You
sell.
you typically pay by the tasting, right?
Yeah.
So you basically go up and you say €3 and you get a little tasting of that Barolo, that, and which is kind of cool because it's a great way to try a bunch of different wines, different vintages and years and whatnot, and you can then buy the ones that you like.
Yeah, they sell like all of the vineyards at that one spot, so it's efficient.
Yeah, it's very efficient. So that's Italy, or at least that's northern Italy. That's the only part of Italy that we've done wine tastings at is in the Piedmont region. Tuscany might be slightly different, or in the south. And then in France, we did the Loire Valley, and that was a little bit easier to kind of go and like stop into places and try some wine.
You organized it the most, so I have to look at you for how we did it. I was literally along for the ride on that trip. It was really nice of Derek to be like, we're going to go to this vineyard. And I was like, okay.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm trying to think back. It was a while now. But
Hi, Brenna.
Hey, Brenna, how you doing?
Come join our wine day.
Wine day, yeah. So, I mean, what was great about that, though, was, we got to go to a number of different places. We kind of went down to, I think, Vouvray and kind of stopped into a few just random places. I think in France, the way that we did it more was that we were going into wine shops rather than going to actual vineyards.
There's this place in the Marais district of Paris that's a phenomenal wine shop, and they have wines from all over France, and they can kind of take you through a map of France, if you will, from a wine perspective.
Is that where we bought their Irancy? And we thought it was Francy?
Yeah.
So there's a bottle of wine. It turns out it's Irancy is the type of wine. And we looked at it and it had this stylized script that looked kind of cool and flowy. And we kept cracking up because we thought it said Francy. And we're like, oh my God, it's Francy wine. We had to buy that. And we bought it, and it wasn't until I got the receipt and it was like printed in like type. And it said Irancy, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah. That one's still in our wine fridge. That one's aging as part of the arbitrage theory right now, I think.
Yeah. I don't know if it's good aged or not, but, we'll try it.
But yeah. So to answer some questions that have come in, we have not been to the Champagne region, but I'm sure we'll go because it's really easy to get to from France. I know several people actually last summer that did day trips there or like an overnight to the Champagne region. Including our sister-in-law. She went with her mom and did a day trip there. Then another good friend of mine did an overnight. So I know that it can be really easy. We just haven't done that specifically because I'm less of a fan of sparkling wines than flat. So we've prioritized other regions in France. I really, probably before even going to the Champagne region, would more likely go to Bordeaux. I am dying to go to Bordeaux, and I know the Walters World people just went to Bordeaux I think it was last fall, and I got really jealous.
I want to go to wherever they have Chateau Neuf de Pape.
So Megan, not Megan Morris, but another friend, Megan, of mine that I just interviewed on my channel, she's the person I interview about daily life right now in New York City during the COVID-19 outbreak. She and I went to France last fall, and we went down to Avignon down in the Provence region. And that particular town used to be, during the 1300s, for several decades, it used to be the head of the Catholic Church. It's where the Pope resided.
Well, there's a dueling pope. There were two popes. The French king had his own pope, and then there's another pope.
Anyway, history summarized very briefly. There was a pope that lived in France, actually, in the 1300s. And the neighboring hillside created the wine for that pope. And so the actual wine of that region is called Chateauneuf de Pape, which is like
The new Pope Chateau.
the chateau of the Pope. Um, and so that wine is really, really excellent down in the south of France. So I was able to do that with Megan last fall. Clearly, we were talking about wine a lot. I know this was a requested topic from Alan and from Megan Morris, but we can move on.
But Al asked if hotels can help with you getting into vineyards, and depending on the
I don't know. Yeah, which it kind of depends on what.
Anywhere, any hotel that you stay in, if they have some sort of concierge service, can help you get into a vineyard, and as long as you reach out with enough advanced warning, they should be able to help you with that. There's no reason that they can't, and it's especially if you're going to a place where you don't know the language. It's a lot easier if your front desk at your hotel tries to get in touch with the vineyards on your behalf, because they speak the language. They can make the phone calls very easily, because they might not might not be an easy online scheduling process. So I would actually highly recommend that. When we were just the power of using a concierge, no matter what you're doing when you're traveling, is great, and you should definitely take advantage of that. When we were going to get engaged in Quebec City, I used our concierge at the hotel in Quebec ruthlessly to plan the whole thing, basically.
I'm pretty sure she planned our engagement.
She pretty much planned our engagement. Well, with input from me. Thank you.
I'm kidding.
Okay.
I want to give him tons of credit. He did a terrific job proposing.
Only had one shot. So, but yeah, no, definitely utilize concierge and whatnot, and they should be able to help out.
Yeah.
Okay.
But definitely, if you don't speak the language, that's going to be critical to use the concierge, because there's certain countries where it'd be really difficult to just walk in.
Brian and Stephanie. So Stephanie says, you're making Brian and me want some wine. Get some wine. I'm not stopping you. And Brian is saying that he's researching an August-long weekend to Dijon for French Burgundy wine tasting.
Oh, are you inviting me?
She'll go. No, I'll go. I don't care.
Yeah, no, that sounds fantastic. So I was actually researching that area as well. It's right outside of Lyon, which is where another place that I went with my other friend last fall. And let's all go. No.
Rachel's coming.
I need to stop responding to every comment that comes in. Okay, so but yeah, the Burgundy region is supposed to be phenomenal, and specifically using Dijon as a jumping off point, or where you are based. I've done this research even though I haven't been. I hear that that's a really good call. What I would do recommend is booking, if you're doing a tour or getting a driver or something, book those pretty far in advance. And especially since I know you guys are probably going to try to get there last minute if you're flying standby, knowing you guys. I would still try to coordinate it in advance as much as you can, because especially during high season like August, those tour guides book up, and the tours themselves, if it's a group tour, the prices shoot up. And this is based on my September research last year, so just a heads up on that.
Yeah, and I'd say that, during a time like this when a lot of tour guides and whatnot have probably been having some rough times, this is the time when, I would definitely be feeling that you should step up and get one.
Sorry, I just read Stephanie's comment again. So she's saying that she was talking about trying to convince us all to come. You would not have to twist my arm. However, so I don't know how many people follow me on Instagram. The Means to Travel stories yesterday was the first time I featured the fact that I'm trying to brush up on my French during quarantine. And I clicked on the restaurant section where you're supposed to learn all the food words and the the drink words and stuff, and I specifically screenshotted my translation of the word I want wine. I mean, I'm learning all of the good phrases. So I've actually really enjoyed learning French on Duolingo. It's kind of gamified in a way for me. And I think it's a great app. It's totally free, and they have tons of different languages to choose from. I think they even had like Afrikaans and stuff. So no matter where you end up going in the world, just doing Duolingo for, I don't know, like the first maybe 20 lessons, and each lesson takes like 10 minutes to do, will definitely be rewarding. I've found that since I've started the French one, which I kind of keep repeating doing since I keep going to French speaking places. But since I started doing the French one, I've found that navigating menus and just navigating myself through a city is so much easier. I certainly am nowhere near fluent yet. I haven't put enough time into it, but it's really helpful.
I mean, it's really helpful with at least like the daily niceties that you can get down with people, like hello, thank you, how are you?
Or even just like I learned that the word for man is om, and I stayed at a hotel called the Hotel of the Great Man, and I would have no idea what that translation would have been if it hadn't been for my Duolingo. So
it also helps if you need to go to the restroom and it says home, HOMME, and you're like, I don't know what that means. If you know that means man, then you're like, that one's for me and not for her.
Yeah, it's a good alternative too to like Rosetta Stone, because you can have it on your phone and just do it whenever you're free. Yeah. And Kathy, I'm actually surprised because I know that you've been learning Spanish, to hear that you hadn't heard of Duolingo. So I'm curious what you have been using. Let me know.
So Al says, for a bonus, Dr. Fauci says that August summer vacays might actually be okay. So that'd be cool.
I missed that news. That's a good headline. I want to cheers to that headline, actually, and I won't get my hopes up. Everybody please stay safe and be home as long as we need to fight this virus, but I am super pleased to hear that vacations might start to resume back to normal.
Cheers.
Cheers.
So, Germany travel personal guide,
hi,
welcome.
Darian, welcome.
How you doing? Thank you for joining us.
Great to have you on for the first time. Welcome.
Welcome.
Hi, Karen Mack in Toronto. Good to see you.
Karen, hello. Okay, so wait. So
we're kind of
Katie.
behind. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Love the wine talk. It sparked another question. Do you speak any other languages? Which languages do you want to learn? Well, we were just mentioning Duolingo and how Eliz is learning French, or at least some beginner French.
We both speak Spanish. Not fluently. Derek actually studied abroad in Spain, so I would say that his is better than mine.
He minored in Spanish.
I did take Spanish for 10 years, including in college, but I didn't end up going through with the minor. Probably should have, but it's fine.
A couple classes shy.
Yeah, I think I was 2 classes shy. I kind of pivoted to global studies instead of just Spanish. But anyway, so both of us speak enough Spanish, certainly, to get through any Spanish-speaking country. However, what I've really wanted to learn is French, and that's because we've gone to French-speaking Canada, France, and just a lot of other... there's just a lot of scenarios where I've felt like I really wanted to speak French, at least, I guess, conversationally, and haven't been able to throughout my travels.
Yeah, and Morocco's a country that's on our list of places to go to. So within Africa, there's a number of countries that are former French colonies that still speak French as one of the languages that they learn in school. So that would be a good language to have there as well.
What would have been nice is when we were in China to know at least a little bit of Chinese. But our friend who we were staying with at the time that we went, who is an expat, it made us feel slightly better that he had been living there for about 2 years and still didn't really know Chinese, and kind of got his way around by pointing at things and knowing knowing how to count to 10.
Say no, he had hand signals down. It was great.
And he knew how to count to 10. So I guess that's a really good tip, because even if you're living somewhere or if you're traveling somewhere, to know those basics of yes, no, thank you, please, hello, good morning, good evening, and then numbers That can get you really far. Oh, and the word for toilet, whatever the word for toilet is.
Now, one of the things that Bren is saying is that you can download like Google Translate on your phone while you're traveling, which is
Yes.
true, and that's really, really helpful. I would highly recommend that to anybody who's going abroad and you don't speak the language.
To anywhere, even if it's like us going to a Spanish-speaking country.
One of the things that I don't know if I mentioned on our last one, or I mentioned it somewhere at some point, but the other thing is making sure that you have downloaded the keyboards for the different languages. So if you are going to a place that speaks like Japanese or Mandarin, or uses the Russian keyboard or whatever, make sure that you have those downloaded in advance so that you can maybe talk to people by typing it out in English, handing it to them, and letting them type back to you in their language. That's really helpful. That helped us out a lot in China.
Well,
when we were trying to get like
specific...
We
made that mistake first in China. So I had the Chinese to English Google Translate, and so I was typing out. I was trying to communicate with a train conductor or a train helper.
Like a flight attendant for a train, basically.
Yes, that. Which we don't have very many of those in the U.S.
A train attendant.
And so I was trying to ask her how to get Wi-Fi. And so she could read what I was asking, but took my phone to type back to me. And she was like, I don't know how to do... Basically, like, I don't know how to do this. So that was a huge mistake that we remedied as soon as I got back on Wi-Fi, and I could make that work. But... lesson learned, passing on the knowledge.
Luckily, I had cell phone service, so I was able to download the Chinese keyboard and give it to her and stuff, and we were able to figure it out. So.
Oh, Rachel's saying there's a voice feature in Google Translate too. I guess we didn't have.
Maybe we didn't know that.
Yeah, I guess we didn't try that. Sorry about that to the train conductor out there, train staff. But yeah, that's a good tip. Google Translate is one of my top apps for studying abroad. Not studying abroad, traveling abroad.
Yeah, the letting you use the camera to translate signs in Asia is very helpful. I agree with Brian. Especially in places where they don't have the maybe they don't have the not the English version, but like the signs that you can actually read that aren't just symbols. Maybe they only have like kanji or something like that. I'm not going to be able to find my way around if that's the only sign that I have, unless I have some other way of figuring out what that actually says. Because I'm just like, it just is jumbled for me. I don't understand it.
So another language that I would love to learn a little bit more of is German. What I do find interesting is that when I go to areas that speak German or speak Dutch or something like that, for some reason I feel like the similarity to English can be seen in a lot of the navigational words, or maybe I'm more familiar with some of the German words. It just kind of makes sense to me as soon as I learn what the words are. It kind of clicks. Mm-hmm. So market and that kind of thing is just such a similar word that I really respect the German language in that way, and would love to learn more of it.
Yeah, and Al is asking how important it is to know hand signals that go along with the culture as well. That's not something that I've ever really focused on. I just try not to make too many hand signals, so I don't want to inadvertently offend somebody. Yeah. But I'd say good point. Maybe we should brush up on that, Al, before we go abroad more.
I think this is kind of... I don't know if that was on screen. This is kind of the universal sign for check. But I've heard that in certain places, doing a thumbs up can be maybe rude or something like that. So that type of thing is usually explained if you get a guidebook for your destination. Yeah. And I'm a proponent of having a guidebook with you, just to be able to navigate the country with a little bit more knowledge than you would necessarily if you were just using TripAdvisor or something like that. So Derek's, I think, about to show you some of my guidebook collection that I have behind the camera. But we're big fans of actually bringing a guidebook. And one of the things that I learned from Rick Steves Derek just brought all my Rick Steves books. But from going to some of Rick Steves's speeches and seeing his videos online is that you can actually use a box cutter to cut up your guidebooks usually. So that
I just want to point out real quick, Amsterdam in the Netherlands, first edition. Amsterdam in the Netherlands, third edition. We have two of the same, and Amsterdam, Bruges, and Brussels.
Yes, I have a lot of them. Wow. Okay, so and that he just brought like a small pile.
France, Scotland, and England.
But anyway, so what Rick Steves taught me is that you can take your guidebooks, and if they're only, like, let's say you buy one that's for France, but you're only going to go to, I'm going to use my trip from last fall, for example. You're only going to go to Paris, Lyon, and Avignon. Then you can use the box cutter on the binding and only cut out those parts of the book, put them in a little plastic baggie, and then you have kind of tiny little guidebooks that save a ton of space and weight in your luggage. So we did that when we went to Argentina because there's so many great places to see in Argentina, but we only went to Mendoza, Buenos Aires, and Bariloche within the country itself. And so we divided up our Argentina guidebook, put it in a plastic baggie, and each destination we only had maybe like something like 40 pages worth of a mini guidebook with us.
Yeah, which is fun. And unfortunately, when we did our honeymoon was when Zika was kind of going along in the Brazil area, so we didn't make it to Iguazu Falls while we were there because it was a little bit too close. We weren't planning on any sort of like pregnancy, but we were just like, just in case, let's kind of avoid that.
Well, also, I mean, pregnancy, they were proving, of course, that it was really bad, but just getting sick on your honeymoon wouldn't be fun. Yeah. And because there was such an outbreak when we were taking our honeymoon, we just didn't want to have that risk. Plus, I think I was explaining on the Walter's World live stream last weekend that I am a huge mosquito magnet. Yeah. Literally, if there is a mosquito within 1,000 feet of me, it's going to find me and nobody else in my group and bite me.
Which is why it's great to walk next to her, because they'll always go to her instead of me. Like, so much better. So that's always fun.
So we'll have to go back to Argentina when. So my next video that I'm posting, my next video interview is about our friend who was in Buenos Aires and actually had to go home. But she talks about COVID-19 outbreak in Argentina and her experience with that. So I think when she is able to go back to Argentina after it's safe to travel again later this year. Then we'll go visit her and hopefully get up to Iguazu Falls.
Yeah. So that'll be fun. All right. So Germany, you're saying, I think you heard you say that you've traveled to Germany for work, etc. What parts and means to travel have you been to Germany? So you've never been to Germany. Nope. I've only been to Frankfurt.
We were going to go to Germany in March.
We were going to go to Cologne while we were in Amsterdam, but the coronavirus was pretty bad there.
The outbreak in Germany was like the worst in the Cologne and Dusseldorf area, so we cut that from our itinerary.
Yeah, so we were going to do that. And then we cut our entire trip short, so that's fine. Yeah. We were going to go there. I've been to Frankfurt. I've been down to like Friedrichshafen type area, like on the border with Switzerland, and kind of done the drive between the two and whatnot. But that's really it. I haven't spent any significant time in Germany.
You had a layover in Munich too, right? Or did I make that up?
Yeah, I went to the Munich airport. I drank a lot of German beer and ate some German like Spitzel and stuff like that. But
I didn't remember that. I didn't leave the airport.
That was when.
But if you have any Germany questions, Stephanie Berghammer on this wonderful chat. She is a Germany expert.
Germany Travel Personal Guide lives in Germany.
Well, Germany Travel Personal Guide, Darian, I believe actually. Tell me if I'm wrong.
From Texas.
Yeah. Oh, do you live in Germany? Please let us know. Hi, Jocelyn and Mark. Good to see you. Welcome to the chat.
I agree. She should have finished that off, Mark. We have more.
It's like one little sip. I know. All right. I'm gonna finish this and here. Let's fill me up after that. Darian is now in Georgia. I assume you
Oh, in
mean
Georgia.
the state.
The state.
Not the country. Kathy. Thank you for the cheers, Kathy. Just so everybody knows that Kathy is talking about from our happy hour a few weeks ago on this channel. We have a chant. You just have to type out people's names and you just hear it as Eliz, Eliz.
Yeah, no pressure at all, Mark. All right, so...
But I'm assuming that... Okay, so he's saying, I'm from Florida, just moved to Georgia. Cool. Wait. Oh, yeah, Georgia.
He just moved to Florida to Georgia because he's a huge Bulldog fan.
Well, nice. I'm guessing that Jocelyn approves. My friend Megan, who I keep mentioning on this chat, who's not included in this live chat, she's the one that I went to France with last fall, and I just interviewed on my channel for the New York Daily Life in New York right now video. She also went to Georgia and is a ginormous Bulldogs fan, and she forced us to watch a Georgia football game while we were in France.
That's awesome. Kind of feels like when we were in during our honeymoon on New Year's Eve. Actually, we ended up watching like a bowl game. I think in the.
Oh yeah, we did. We watched a bowl.
Not the Four Seasons. What?
We were at
Ritz-Carlton.
Ritz-Carlton.
We were at the Ritz-Carlton in the hotel bar in Santiago, Chile, with a bunch of Americans, and we're like watching like a bowl game. I was just like, wow, this is a weird way to do New Year's.
Yeah, it was actually, there was too many Americans. Have you guys ever experienced being somewhere and everybody that you're around is from America and you start to question, like, should I be here right now? Because that was that situation.
Now, I will say that is the cheapest Ritz-Carlton, I think, in the world. Somebody told me about that it is actually the cheapest Ritz-Carlton in the world. So we're like,
a lot of people redeem their points there.
Let's go and splurge.
Yeah.
So we had a good time.
And then, well, okay, I guess we're starting to chat about
sports. Al says, what about the Illini?
So as you all know, Derek and I went to
there's no cap on it.
Derek and I went to Indiana, and our mascot is the Hoosiers. And
nobody knows what a Hoosier is.
Yeah, that's not a thing. We don't have like a mascot that dresses up as a Hoosier. Because
does anybody know where the term Hoosier comes from?
Oh wow, this is a riveting live chat. Tell us more.
From what I understand, it's from when the door-to-door salesman...
I don't actually know this.
It's from when the door-to-door salesman used to go door-to-door. That's what they did. And they would knock, and they would hear on the other end, Hoosier! That's where they got Hoosier from.
Wow, that's a real story.
There's like a rainbow. The more you know.
Wow. Cool. And yes.
That's what I learned in Indiana history. Honest to God.
Oh, they guessed it. Was it from the movie? Anyway, so yes, Indiana sports is not something we need to discuss in length because that would be a little bit challenging.
Yeah, no, Indiana sports hasn't been good for a little while. Although,
but at least
the
marketing program's great there.
Ooh.
Burn. No.
I don't know which one's better, Kelly or Geese. So.
Yeah, I actually don't know either. Yeah. I'm sure it's the Geese marketing program's great because Mark teaches it there. So.
Yeah, I'm a finance guy, so I got nothing to say.
So Katie Smith is saying, I had a good time or a good rate for the Four Seasons in Tunis. $150 a night when I went in February. Couldn't afford that hotel chain in the U.S. I'll check out the Ritz in Santiago now too. So we have a good story about something similar. So as you guys may know, the exchange rate between the U.S. and Canada has been pretty good. And I know that you're in Toronto, so it's not really something applicable to you. But from the U.S., we went to Vancouver and stayed at the Four Seasons on a really, really good deal one time. And it was definitely a business hotel. Like, it was very much set up for corporate stays. But we had a really good time being able to stay at a really luxury place. That was a little bit cheaper.
They had a cool like indoor-outdoor pool where you could like swim underneath a barrier. And,
yeah, and they had outdoor shuffleboard.
Cool. Yeah.
So that was really cool. Yes, Indiana has an incredible marketing program. Thank you, Mark.
And Indiana's higher ranked.
Is it really? Okay.
Nice. I mean, we graduated for 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, we graduated in 2010, so can't attribute that to any of our doing. And then Stephanie Berkhammer chiming in with her Germany experiences. She's spent 3 summers there and a semester abroad, 3 months for work, and now I get to go about 2 times a year. Yeah, and I have always wanted to go with the Berkhammers, especially Stephanie, of course, because she would be such a great guide. They have really traveled to Germany a lot, and have some good friends there. And when we were trying to get out of Amsterdam really quickly on March 12th, Stephanie's host sister from when she studied abroad there the first time actually reached out to me on WhatsApp and was like, hey, I heard that you might be getting stuck there. And granted, I've only met her one time, maybe a second time at Stephanie's wedding, but not a lot. So sweet. She lives in outside of Cologne. It was like, hey, I can drive to Amsterdam and pick you up if anything happens and you aren't able to get on a flight. And just that kindness was so meaningful at the time when we were super worried about being able to get back to the U.S. before the deadline. So I can speak very highly about at least the German people in Stephanie's life. But I'm sure they're all really great.
Yeah. I didn't even know that, so that's cool. Way to go, Steffi.
Yeah.
All right, so Walter's World. Yes, we stayed at some incredible hotels in China that would be $500+ a night in the U.S. and was in the $80 range in China, so we got to try luxury. So, Mark, actually, I'm
glad you mentioned that.
Glad that you mentioned that.
We
had the same experience. We stayed at, in Beijing, we stayed at the Rosewood. In Shanghai, we just stayed with our friend in our friend's apartment, which was great. I wouldn't call it 5-star luxury, but it was great because it was free, and we had awesome house, so that's the way to do it.
And they told us to always order jambing for breakfast.
Jambing every morning.
No regrets. It was delicious.
It's like 70 cents for this pancake, delicious, phenomenal, like,
it's kind of like a
goodness.
crepe with all these
crepe
wonderful, beautiful
with
ingredients.
Eggs and chives and like hoisin sauce or some sort of fermented sauce. It's so good. It's got like a crispy cracker thing in it. It's delicious. They actually have a jambing place here in Chicago called Mr. Bing, and highly recommend it.
Derek
so
went
good.
without me. I still haven't gone here in Chicago.
But there's no jambing that's better than just like the street jambing. Like we got jambing when we were at the nice hotel in Beijing, and it just wasn't as good.
Yeah.
It just wasn't
not as good as the street food in Shanghai.
Yeah, I do, but the question that I have for you, Mark, is did you find the beds to be kind of hard in China? Because we found that the beds, even at like the Rosewood, which was a nice luxury hotel, had fairly hard mattresses, and what we were told was that it was because of like Mao's Little Red Book, something about not sleeping in, and so having a harder mattress made it so you'd wake up quicker. I don't know, because you wouldn't want to just spend time in them.
That's how it was explained to us.
Not my thing.
Yeah, so I guess we were just following the local traditions. But yeah, Mark's saying that the beds are pretty firm in his experience too. So Mark and Jocelyn, just so you know, on the Walters World, folks, Mark did a summer where he taught in Beijing, and brought Jocelyn, his wife, and their 2 sons. And so I believe we probably watched some of your China videos right before we went last year as well. So thank you. Thanks. In hindsight, for helping us out.
Yeah, we
They have a great YouTube channel if you guys haven't heard of it. I should probably not assume that everybody has on this chat, but I certainly am a humongous fan. Go check out their YouTube videos because they've been all over the world and talk about it and give everybody great advice. So Mark's saying he likes a hard mattress, so he was happy about it. All right. Kathy is a huge fan of Walter's World. Yay! All right. So I feel like we've missed a few things. Oh, Eric Brown's on. Hi, Eric. So sorry that we missed you way back in the chat. Welcome.
Sorry. Kathy is great. I'm a huge fan of Walter's World, and I'm kind of celeb shocked right now. Kathy, come on. Of course. We bring in the celebs.
Yep, yeah.
All right. Eric's a good dude. Eric is a good dude, man. So... It's awesome. Yeah, so if anybody has any other questions to talk about, I guess the other thing that we were going to talk about...
We all drink wine. I think, Mark, you missed,
wine.
Everything that you missed in this chat before you joined was about wine.
Yeah, we talked... Yeah,
we even talked about wine from Mendoza.
We talked about Mendoza, wine tours, all that good stuff. So, sorry that you missed that. I will say that, the one thing that we didn't talk about is one of the funny things about YouTube. And does anybody else during this time, have you guys been kind of like watching things on YouTube and then you get served more things on YouTube and it kind of like leads you into this weird spiral down into like oblivion?
No, tell me more, Derek. I'm just kidding.
So for me it started out as, hey, look at this guy build an exotic swimming pool in a jungle in South America. And it's like some dude digging out like a massive hole in the ground that he then like painstakingly over 72 days turns into an underground house and swimming pool that's like luxury. And that's cool. And then I start watching a bunch of those, and then it turns into like bush craft, like how to like build like a lean-to and all this stuff with like a hatchet and a knife. And then it turns into like survivalist prepping, and it turns into like how to build a bug out bag. And then I'm like Googling things and like looking at Amazon on like belt knives that I should be buying now, because like what if stuff happens? I don't know. This is like the thing that YouTube does, though. It just kind of like spirals you down.
If we need a bug out bag in Chicago, I think we're doomed. I think so. I don't know, but
so good.
I think we're gonna have a hard time surviving the rough streets of Chicago. Can't build too many underground huts without getting discovered.
Just drive south. Okay.
Yes, Kathy, it is behavioral targeting and contextual targeting, if you will. Derek is being served content that he's already shown engagement with. And it just keeps going. That is the YouTube algorithm, isn't it? And that's maybe how we're all here today, to talk about travel. So anywho,
yeah, you can tell where my scatterbrained mind is at any given time by whenever you pull up my YouTube, like, what do I get served with? It's like, what have I been watching recently?
I just saw Brian Burkhammer's comment. You've described how I found epic rap battles of history.
Which is phenomenal,
Did you start with trying to watch Hamilton videos and then it just spiraled? Explain.
Well, Epic Rap Battles of History is actually like an awesome series to watch. That's right up there with Drunk History. I really enjoy Drunk History, like, phenomenally. I think...
Which is a TV show, everybody, just so you know.
Yeah, and and I think they're all on YouTube, but I think Lin-Manuel Miranda did a Drunk History on, like, the whole, like, Burr thing, which is phenomenal, because they're just getting, like, trashed. Have a lot of fun with those.
Yeah. And then I think we had another question hang on. I wanted to answer, so Karen Mack asked, have you ever been sick while traveling?
Yes.
I was the first one of the two of us to get sick while traveling.
Oh yeah, you did.
So what happened was so Derek and I studied abroad at the same time, but in different cities, and then we would meet up once a month together for a long weekend, and that's kind of how we were able to in college have different study abroad experiences, but still be together during that semester. So when I think it was like the first month that I was in London and Derek was in Spain, and I also was a part of one of those study abroad programs that you have an internship along with taking 4 classes. And so during my internship, we would, take lunch break. So I went to Marks and Spencer's and got what I distinctly remember as cream of chicken soup. And this was before I was lactose intolerant. I didn't become that until I was 24. Fun fact. So at the time, I ate the soup at lunchtime, and then I was supposed to leave at 4 o'clock to go to Stansted Airport to catch my flight to Sevilla to meet Derek. So on the train to Stansted, I start to feel really sick. And for anyone who's ever been to Stansted Airport from London, it's a long journey. It is about so I worked on Bond Street at Stella McCartney, and it was probably an hour and a half from my office to get there. But I lived in Notting Hill, and so
you're like not right over there, 2
over
blocks
there.
that way, Notting Hill. Oh,
no, we're in Chicago right now. I lived in Notting Hill, and so it was 2 hours from there. So by the time I get to Stansted, I am ill, and I remember calling Derek on my cell phone, which
was a big deal.
Which was a big deal back in 2009. I didn't have like an international plan or anything like that. From the airport, saying like, I am so sick, but I'm going to get on this airplane because if I go home right now, it's a 2-hour trip home and there's no bathroom. And if I get on this airplane, it's a 2-hour trip to Sevilla and there's a bathroom.
Yes.
So
she came to visit me, and then everything was okay.
And I am here to tell the tale.
Yep, she survived.
So that was my experience, and that was at a very reputable. Like I to this day still buy lunches from Marks and Spencer's. That was a total anomaly. And I highly recommend Marks and Spencer's for, discounted lunch foods, on the whole.
Yeah.
It's just, sometimes you start to get sick while you're traveling and,
I mean, mine was,
make choices.
On our honeymoon, I got a little bit sick when we were in, Mendoza, which again, I think it was that, we went
You
on
also
a
got
wine
sick
tour.
in Italy when Brian and Stephanie were there.
I think it's sick. I was having like indigestion issues no, I was.
No, I'll let you tell your tales. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just gonna say in Mendoza, I got food poisoning where I was like sick. I was like throwing up and everything, and that was again. I mean, it was from a wine tour. It was at the very end. It was great. I loved the wine tour, but then at the end, I think I had, I ate my dessert plus her dessert because it was delicious, and I think that's what kind of did me in because she did not get sick, but I got pretty miserable. So I was pretty much out of commission the whole next day, which meant that we had to cancel a horseback riding tour that we were going to do a horseback riding tour at sunset, followed by like a whole like estancia sort of like barbecue thing. And so because I got sick, luckily the tour company allowed us to move our thing to the next day, so we're still able to do our horseback riding thing 2 days later. And luckily we had the buffer with our amount of time in Mendoza, so that was still great. And that's why I think that it's really important, like if you think about like getting sick and things like that, understand that like stuff happens, and so having some sort of leeway in your calendar and your schedule is really helpful because that makes it so that you can actually like adjust to those things, and hopefully it's for good things like, oh my god, I just found out about this amazing opportunity that I want to go on this hike or something. But worst case scenario, if something comes up and you're like, devastatingly ill one day, hopefully you don't miss out on an opportunity that you really wanted to do while you're there. So that's why I think it's really important to have like nice buffer into your schedule, no matter what.
So I want to take a moment because Eric Brown is calling out that. So he's saying Stansted is so out of the way. It totally is. And I've only been there in Gatwick since it's usually more expensive to go to Heathrow. I kind of want to take a moment to just,
City
as a
airport's
community,
nice.
talk about those types of destinations that have multiple airports to choose from. So London has so many, and I've actually, we've flown out of City Airport, which is probably the most convenient, but also has more expensive flights because I think it's a lot of business travelers that.
I mean, at this point,
take
I've flown
those.
in and out of Stansted, Gatwick, City, and Heathrow.
There's also Luton.
I've never done Luton.
And I think there's one more, and I'm totally blanking on it. Another one that's really far out, though. But anyway, I think what's great for those bigger cities is you have a lot of choices.
Sorry, just keep going.
You have a lot of choices, and even places like Paris, it has multiple airports and stuff like that. So if you are traveling to Europe and you want to jump around from different cities, sometimes taking an airplane is a little bit more convenient than taking a train. I would say that especially with London, with City Airport, if you can find a pretty reasonable ticket out of that airport, you can just take the overground train there. And then we hopped from there to Amsterdam pretty quickly, whereas I think if you took the Eurostar from London to Amsterdam, it would have been a little bit more time.
Yeah, and what I would say though is that with London as an example, if you do fly into Heathrow though, it's really really convenient just to take the train to St. Pancras. It's like a 15-minute train, I think, to St. Pancras station. So as long as you're within a pretty easy commute from that train station, which is fairly central, it's pretty easy. City Airport's really good if you're close to the east side of London, closer to the east side, which is where City Airport is. And so if you are there for work and your work is in Canary Wharf, that's super convenient. If you're staying
if our friend lives in Greenwich, so it's just a hop, skip, and a jump over there.
Sure. But yeah, no, I mean, so, you kind of have to look at what you're going to and what's the pain in the butt factor. Because if you look at, if you just looked at, flying into Tokyo as another example, everybody thinks of, I think, Narita as the airport in Tokyo to go to. But Narita is actually pretty far away from Tokyo. And if you're just flying through Tokyo and you have to do a switch over to Haneda, which is actually a lot closer to Tokyo, you actually have to go through Tokyo to get to Haneda. So there's a whole thing there where when I was flying through Tokyo, I was able to fly into Narita, go into Tokyo, spend a few hours there, go around the Imperial City, and then go to Haneda to fly over to Singapore. But the whole thing there being that if you can fly straight into Haneda and you're going to stay in Tokyo, that's much more convenient than if you were to fly into Narita, which is the bigger airport. So
yeah, you kind of have to look at a map, I guess. And when you're seeing a really too good to be true flight price, it might be for a reason. So I think I flew EasyJet, for example, or Ryanair from Stansted to Sevilla, and at the time, I was a college student, so I had more time than money. And that 2-hour round trip from my home from Notting Hill to Stansted was completely fine. I think it was at the time it was a 25-pound train ride to and from the airport. But Mark is saying, I just want to say real quick, he said it was $100. Wait, scroll down for it. Okay, you went
wrong way.
Yeah, you went wrong way. $100 round trip from Lithuania to London, then a 150-pound taxi ride on a Sunday morning to get to Stansted. It was eye-opening.
Wow.
And that's the kind of thing when you're trip planning, it's really important to price out. And TripAdvisor and lots of those online forums and chats like this can help inform that type of decision. So, because there's a lot of travelers that have made that mistake and been in those positions before, including us. Well, and we can, talk about what's the best way to save money.
Well, it's really important to know what your more budget-friendly options are for transit to and from airports before you get to a place, when it's like easier and you can kind of do your research. Because I know that going to like Tokyo, for instance, where you don't speak the language and you can't really read the signs and stuff, it can be a little bit more overwhelming. So as long as you've kind of done the research in advance, you kind of know what you're going to be expecting. It makes it a little bit more, a little bit easier. I find that, at least. Because if I were just to like land and then have to be stressed out and worried about how am I going to get into Tokyo, what am I going to do once I get there, it's just a whole other thing. And at the end of the day, it's pretty easy. You like buy a fairly inexpensive ticket for a bus. The bus takes you straight into Tokyo Station. You check your luggage. You walk around for a little while, pick your luggage back up, and you take another bus to Haneda Airport. It's nice and easy.
Yeah. And just kind of to piggyback on Mark was saying, well said, too good to be true price, good advice. So for example, when we went to Milan, it's incredible how far outside of certain cities their major airports can actually be. Milan is a great example of that. Their airport is really, really distant from the actual city center. And so there's a lot of information online if you're planning a trip to a certain city about how far away the city is. It can even be within, like New York City, for example. Like JFK is an hour from Manhattan, especially in traffic. Brian, I think we have to hide that.
He's meant to say awful.
Oh, awful. Okay, it told us that we had to approve it. Anyway, so, but like even within the U.S., there's certain airports that are very distant from the city center. So I always try to Google before choosing a final destination, like how we're going to get from the airport to the city center and what that estimated cost could be. Because, for example, when we went to Amsterdam, it was like €6 a person to get to the city center, which is very affordable. But if you're flying into Stansted, it might be a $150 cab ride. If you're flying from into Newark, it might be a $150 cab ride if you're staying in the east side of Manhattan. So
sorry,
it's definitely something to consider.
I love Mark's thing. I think Denver's airport is in Utah.
You were actually totally right on that. Not that it's in Utah, but it is so far outside of the city.
Not only that, it's like,
and there's no
it's always
easy
under
public
construction.
transit.
Like, the Denver airport is, by the way, if you're looking for good like conspiracy theories, like the Denver airport, there's a ton of conspiracy theories about like maybe that's where like the bunker is that the government would go to in the case of nuclear war and like all that good stuff. But what I've also heard is that there's a rumor that maybe there's like some organized crime stuff, and that's why the airport's always under construction.
Where did you hear all these theories? I've never heard this before.
Flying in and out of Denver.
Oh my gosh, hot topics.
Hot
here
gas.
On the Means to Travel live stream.
All right, so I've been trying to get back to this. So Mark asked, so speaking of travel, so we've been talking a little bit about travel, but which location will you not be going back to? Bum, bum, bum.
That's a great question, Mark. I think that you and Jocelyn evade this question a lot. So funny that you're asking us that.
No. What place will I not be going back to? While I like the region of Mendoza, I would not.
I love Mendoza. No, go on.
BS. You like Mendoza, the region.
Yeah.
Mendoza, the city, leaves something to be desired.
I guess the way so what he's trying to say is that we would stay in the wine, like at a winery.
I would say like an estancia or a winery or something. But I don't know that I would stay in Mendoza City again, because Mendoza City is like actually like a real city. It's actually kind of large, and I think that if you go there, when we went there, I think it was probably the biggest issue was our expectations didn't meet reality. So our expectations were going to be like when you go to like Sonoma or Napa or one of these other places, and we thought it'd be like a quaint little like wine town. Lo and behold, it's a real city, tons of people. We were there during like the height of summer.
Misled and mismarketed too about Mendoza. We should have watched Walter's World more in advance of going there. I think we ended up watching a Rudy Max's World episode about Mendoza, and we ended up staying where he stayed in that.
Which was a great
Which
hotel.
was a great hotel,
Great
but it was
hotel.
all Americans. So it was just another example of of where you experience, like you're thinking you're going to get a very localized experience, and you don't. But it was we had a lovely stay.
Yeah, it was great. And we had great tours, and like we ate at Francis Melman's restaurant while we were there. Like it was nice, but again, maybe I wouldn't go to the city. Next time I would go and I would stay directly on a vineyard. That's what I would do. I don't know if there's any place I would just like
answer this
never
question
go to.
with a whole heart, and that is Lordsburg, New Mexico. I would not go back to.
I thought you were going to say Lawrenceburg, Indiana, which is where my parents live.
No,
and I was like, oh my God.
That's not what I said.
The truth is coming out, people.
Nope. Lordsburg, New Mexico.
Okay.
That place.
Mom and Dad, she's not saying
when
you.
I was a teenager, I did a lot of road trips. Just with family, with my church group.
And that one was so good, you just can't stand
that
to go
particular road trip, because I had never been to New Mexico before, and my family, I think, drove from Tucson, and that's like the first town over the border, basically, from Tucson. There's a lot of beautiful places in New Mexico that I have been to since, but that particular town was just a little bit of a dive, and that's all I'm going to say. So that is a place that I probably wouldn't go back to, but I would recommend New Mexico on the whole. I've been to the Navajo Nation in New Mexico as well, and I've been to a lot of Native American reservations. By the way, I think Derek just went to get more wine. Everybody is probably on the edge of their seat about where he was, so letting you know. So anyway, I've been to a lot of Native American reservations just across the U.S. I think they're really important to go to. I have volunteered at many. I've just gone to several as a tourist, and I think the culture is phenomenal. And I really think that if you are driving past one or through a Native American reservation, just stopping and trying to figure out a little bit about that tribe and learn the history of that tribe and why they're there is really important. Personally, so I think a lot of that spirit from my perspective is a deep respect of Native American people that I got from my grandmother. My grandmother's from rural Oklahoma, actually was born in Cherokee, like the Cherokee Nation, even though we're not part of the tribe whatsoever. So we've just always had a deep respect for the Native people here in the U.S., and I think we don't talk about them very much, but it's important to do so. Derek just grabbed another wine. Which one are you drinking? Oh, this is one of our house wine brands, if you will, Apothic. We jokingly call it our house wine because it's really affordable, and we always have
super
some.
Cheap and yummy.
And you can get it at Costco, Target.
Very juicy.
All that good stuff. I feel like we should be sponsored by wine companies. If you guys work for the marketing department of a wine company, please reach out to us. Just kidding.
But
also,
no,
actually, I'm pretty sure half of the people in this chat work for Delta, so.
So Mark.
Or our Delta fans.
Yeah, so wait, what else?
I recommend a winery called Kirkland.
Nice.
Yeah, actually, Costco Kirkland wine is really good too.
Well, because what they do is they actually have some like pretty decent like winemakers who like make their blends, so it's pretty
So
great.
actually, can you scroll down? I think Eric Brown was it. He was saying he's been to South Dakota to Crazy Horse. I actually volunteered in high school at Standing Rock, which is on the border of North Dakota and South Dakota. We did like a mission trip out to Standing Rock. And which is a Native American reservation out there, and that is such untouched land. So if you're into a road trip idea because of this whole COVID-19 outbreak and are thinking about road trips this summer instead of, airplane travel, that just exploring our own country, there's a lot of really cool stuff to see.
What is Eric saying about Southland?
I don't know. Oh, I think he was just talking about Southend, the other London airport, potentially. Sorry, Derek scrolled all the way back, so now we're a little behind. I don't know. He's saying, Mark is saying, I always recommend looking at when you can get and when you can go out. Because Stansted early morning flight means a taxi. That's true. So that's another thing about London in particular is the
underground.
The underground opens, I think, at 5 a.m. or 5:30 a.m. So if you have a 6 a.m. flight, say at City University, you're going to have to taxi it anyway. Or even, I think the Heathrow Express and the Gatwick Express maybe aren't 24 hours. So that's just another thing to consider if you're looking at which airport to go to.
Yeah, and Mark's saying forget the tube on Sunday mornings. I'm sure you agree.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually, for the first time ever, took the tube. So when we were in London last fall, and Derek and I ended up having to fly home separately last minute. So Derek, okay. Long story short, Derek was there for work. I decided to tag along on standby, and then his work travel just completely changed around last minute. He ended up having to go back and forth from London to Switzerland multiple days in a row, and so I had to kind of scramble and find my own lodging last minute and everything like that. And then I just ended up going home. I took the tube all the way from. Oh my gosh, what is it called? Just the center of London, Camden? Basically. No, it's not Camden. It's kind of the West End area, where all the theaters are. Is where my final hotel was.
Oh, what was that hotel that we were staying in? It was the Waldorf, not the Waldorf, right?
I stayed at 5 different hotels on that trip, so I'm not sure which one you're talking about.
Oh wait,
but anyway, let me finish my story. So I jumped on the tube and took that all the way to Heathrow for the first time ever. I've always taken the Heathrow Express before, especially because I lived in Notting Hill when I studied abroad, and it's just easier from there to take the Heathrow Express. And my experience riding the tube was phenomenal. I mean, it maybe took on a Sunday morning, like we're talking about, 50 minutes to get there, because there was not like the normal commuters. So highly recommend if you have more time to do that, and then maybe stay right in the off of that tube line.
All right, so we've got a lot of stuff around the Denver airport conspiracy theories. Glad everybody else agrees with me.
I'll let you read those.
So Mark is saying about them, and Brian is saying he knew I'd come up with those, so that's good. Stephanie agrees that it's in Utah. Look it up. YouTube has plenty of videos on the Denver conspiracies. There we go.
Those aren't going to be on my channel, but maybe if Derek starts his own channel, you guys can really.
It's all going to be about. We're going to call it Pinot Noir and Prepping Thursdays.
Cool.
Pinot and Prepping.
Pinot and Prepping. You heard it here first.
I'm pretty sure what I'm drinking right now is not Pinot. I don't know what it is. It's just juicy. Okay, so would you rather visit a lot of places first because you go back to certain locations? For example, Mendoza. Mendoza is a city. It's grown a ton over the last 20 years, yes. You would rather visit a lot more places first. Okay, so Mark is saying basically it's good to visit a bunch of locations and then like go back to places. I think that's what he's saying once you've visited them once. I agree. I mean, we've been back to a number of places like over and over. One of them being like Paris, we've been to a number of times. We've been to London a ton of times. And, we've had good times doing that. I'd say that the problem, though, is that there's so many places to get to that it's really hard to go back to a place, because at that point you're like, but it's like taking a spot of another place that we want to go out and explore for the first time.
The reason why we ended up going back to Scotland, even though both of us had been there separately without each other, when did we go? A year and a half ago?
We did a big road trip in Scotland.
The reason why we went back was just because the affordability was something we couldn't turn down for the week that we had the time off. So at that point in time, we could only really take a certain week time because of the way that Derek's work was playing out.
Yeah.
And so we were looking at all of the different options literally around the globe of where we could go, and we found a killer deal getting us back and forth from Glasgow to Chicago, and we just couldn't refuse. So because we hadn't been there together, that's why we decided to go back, and we had a blast, literally. And we went to all these places that neither of us had gone before. And so no regrets for going back, but sometimes it just makes sense based on what your budget is for your trip.
Well, it's an entirely different thing. So we had both been to Scotland back when we were in college, right? So she went there when she was in London, and then I came up and I visited her actually Easter weekend, which is happy Good Friday tomorrow.
Good Friday Eve, everybody.
Good Friday Eve.
Mm-hmm.
But Good Friday 11 years ago or whatever it was, I was visiting her in London, and I had the whole week off because I was studying abroad in Spain. Love Spain, so many vacations, big Catholic holidays, you get the whole week off. It's phenomenal.
And I was working at a British fashion company, so I did not get the whole week off.
She didn't. So what happened was I came in the weekend before and I hung out with her. And all of her roommates and stuff. And then for the week, I was like, all right, I went to Bath, I did Stonehenge, and then stayed in the hostel one night, and then went up to Edinburgh for like 3 or 4 days or something like that, stayed in the hostel, and then came back down to London for the second weekend before heading back to Spain. And that was a great way to do Edinburgh, like when you're 21, just stay in a hostel, meet a bunch of like random Swedish dudes, hike a mountain with a Mexican professor, it was Arthur's Seat, but you climb Arthur's Seat with a random dude you met at on a pub crawl. Hope you don't get murdered. It's like halfway into the hike, you're like, I don't know if I should have done this. But it was all good. I survived, and I made a good friend, so it was a lot of fun. So, for people who ask the question about, like, would you stay in a hostel?
I don't know about that question being part of solo travel all the time, but just generally with solo travel, you kind of, you're taking on a risk in the name of having fun and having adventure.
Yeah. That was before, like, smartphones were a thing, right? So I remember I went on a pub crawl with like the whole hostel, and which is a lot of fun. Like if you can stay in a hostel and that's like within your like comfort zone, do it. It's a great way with solo travel to like meet other people.
Yeah, if I were solo traveling, I would consider it.
Yeah.
I don't think you and I would at this point in our 30s stay in a hostel if we didn't have to.
Yeah, probably not. The only way we would possibly do it is if we get a solo room, which is a thing with hostels now.
Yeah, you can. They're actually really high-end hostels now.
Yeah, there's some pretty decent ones, and you can
Afar magazine has a really good article about high-end hostels that you guys should all check out.
Yeah, supposedly there's one in Switzerland that's supposed to be like phenomenal, but I'll have to look that up. But what I was saying was like it's a great way to meet people, and I still remember when we got to Edinburgh, they like gave us like a little map of the city, and it had like 4 street names on it, and that was like it. It was like High Street, something else, and like 2 cross streets.
There are a lot more than 4 streets in Edinburgh.
Which is true. And then there was like a dot, and they're like, that's where our hotel is. And all I remember is going on this like whole pub crawl, drinking a lot of like Guinness and Irish car bombs, which is totally not culturally appropriate at all, and like Irish exiting this like Scottish pub crawl and just like being like, I need to go back to the hostel. And I just remember like walking up and down High Street because that's the only street I could find on the map, and I'm just like, somehow I'm gonna find my way to the hotel. And somehow I did. I don't know how I found my way back to the hostel, but then the next morning I woke up and my whole room was a bunch of like Swedish guys. And I remember like Per and like some others that were their names, and they were like telling me about like, oh yeah, we're glad you made it back, and they're like, yeah, we came back late, and like one guy's like, I only have 1 shoe, and I'm like, why do you only have 1 shoe? Turns out he tried to use it to pay for pizza, but then they had pizza, and they're like, do you want a slice? I said yes. It was a good time. It was a lot of bonding, so I would highly recommend it.
All right, so let's just catch up real quick. I saw Rachel say, did you guys hear about the horse at the Denver airport? And no, I did not. So,
Wait, is that the mini horse, Rachel? Is that the mini horse that she took on the plane with her? Because if so, then yes.
So I actually posted. I'm not a big Twitter user, but I do have a Twitter account at Means to Travel. If anybody wants to follow, I did post an article there about a month ago or so about this crazy, I guess, list of what are those called? The animals that you can bring on the plane.
Support animals?
Support animals, thank you. And some people had brought on peacocks, squirrels. I mean, literally, and there were photos of like a peacock at an airport, and I just could not believe it. So I posted that on Twitter as one of my only solid tweets for you guys. But I'm wondering if was the horse supposed to be a support animal, or was it just kind of there?
No,
as
saying
a
something about a horse
taxi
statue.
service?
Something about a horse statue.
Oh, the horse statue.
I don't know. I have not heard of that.
The only statue that I have really paid attention to is the one in Glasgow outside of the art museum. Oh, so Mark's giving us the deets. Okay, dog and pony are the two protected guide animals of the Denver airport. No, it's the one outside the airport. Okay, so it's...
Assuming it's still a statue, but I'm not sure.
Did somebody do something to it?
Okay, we'll have to look that up later.
Yeah, we're behind on that news.
What I will, so she's saying like there's a statue and the eyes glow red supposedly killed. What? The eyes glow red.
So did the statue become possessed by the devil?
That's weird. Okay, I don't know. That's getting...
Okay, conspiracy theory continues.
It looks like a devil's horse.
Sounds like I'm probably not going to go to the Denver airport and make friends with that horse.
But speaking of horse statues, in Scotland there's one called the Cleppies, which is in between Edinburgh and Glasgow, and I really want to go to.
Great transition, Derek. This is.
And I really want to go to because like phenomenal pictures. It looks really cool.
This is why he's here, guys. Those are really cool, and if you follow any of the Scotland Instagram handles, they'll post pictures of those horses. It's kind of like big horse heads every once in a while, and it's just really cool, very iconic. And then I think we had a couple other questions. Megan Moore's asked, have you ever been glamping or stayed in unconventional dwellings? I've really only stayed in like camping tents and stuff. I wouldn't say that anywhere that I've stayed has been super unconventional. There is like times that I've stayed in more of like a cabin, like Airbnb, but nothing hit me up, barkeep. Nothing too out of the ordinary. I really like comfortable beds. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Well, it's really funny because Eliz said just the other day, she's like, we should go camping.
I did say that. I think I'm just like really itching
and I was
to get
like,
out of the house.
I don't think
we don't own a tent. We don't own anything for camping. I
was like, I don't think you know what you're saying because I don't think you actually want to do camping. But
oh yeah, Brian and Stephanie. Okay, so Stephanie's saying, I highly recommend Paradise Lodge in Banff. It was amazing, and it was a cabin. I was so jealous of your trip to Banff. They went in like July a few years ago, just during perfect high season. And I know Banff can be pretty pricey, especially during high season, which is July and August. But Banff is like a town in like a big national park in Canada. And I really want to go someday. Yeah. We've been to a lot of places in Canada, but never to that area.
Yeah, we've been to some. We've definitely been to some. I don't know if we've been to a lot of places in Canada, but there's a lot of Canada still to see.
True. I mean, it's big. It's pretty big.
But no, Banff would definitely be one of the bigger ones that we want to get to. Toronto would be a lot of fun. I know there's some really cool photographers out in Toronto that I'd love to go hook up with and like do some like nighttime like city skyline shots would be a lot of fun. So
Derek's really good at connecting with other photographers on Instagram. I've kind of gotten the groove of it, but he's been great about doing talking with people from other destinations and learning about their tips for each place and where to take good photos and when. So hit him up for those hot tips if you're into photography. That's
if anybody's looking to come to Chicago and wants to know like where to go get like a good sunrise, sunset, things like that, hit me up. Happy to provide that.
And follow him at Mr. Means to Travel. So Mark is saying, sleep on the living room floor to prepare. Or call him with a lodge. That's hysterical. We probably need to invest in sleeping bags at minimum for that. But he's on Team Megan when it comes to comfortable beds. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, I want a good bed.
I mean, even like the beds, as we were talking about earlier in China, it was a noticeable difference in comfort level. And sometimes when you're traveling, it really means a lot to have that comfort.
Yeah.
But when we were in Wales, for example, at the national park in Wales, that bed was so uncomfortable, but we just didn't care because we were so exhausted.
Well, we had just hiked up Mount Snowdon in Snowdonia National Park, and by the end of that day, we were just like on fumes, like just give me a bed, and we passed out. It was great.
So probably depending on how active you plan on being is how much comfort you need.
and that was at a Best Western in Bettysacoed.
Yeah, Bettysacoed is how it's pronounced, but it's a hyphenated word.
Betys
Highly recommend that place. It's kind of like
Coed.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Colorado of the UK, if you will. Very outdoorsy people reside there. Lots of outdoorsy local boutiques, and there's rafting and mountain climbing and stuff like that, all in the area. And you're in the UK. It's what could be wrong? It was awesome.
Yeah, no, it was great. Highly recommend Wales. All right, so that should be staying in a lodge instead of a tent. Yes, I would totally do a lodge.
Yeah.
That's my version of camping. It is stupid expensive in high season, but Paradise Lodge was a great deal relative to the other options. It's walking distance to one of the Fairmonts, but like
Fairmont
quarter of the
Hotel in
price.
Banff is stunning. Oh my gosh. I think that's the one right on Lake Louise. So what I find so fascinating about all the Fairmont hotels and that chain is, I mean, first of all, they all look like beautiful castles, but the reason why they exist, at least as far as I believe I learned from Rudy Maxa, well, he's getting a lot of shout outs on this live stream today, is that it was built because of the Trans-Canadian Railroad. And each of the main stops along that railroad housed one of those beautiful castle-like Fairmont, now owned by Fairmont hotels. So you can go anywhere from the very east coast of Canada all the way to
Vancouver.
I think in Victoria even there's a Fairmont hotel, which is on Vancouver Island too. So,
real quick, Mark is bowing out, having a good night. So, Mark, thank you very much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Say hi to Jocelyn and the fam.
Say hi to the fam.
Really appreciate you dialing in today, and we'll see you Saturday.
Cheers. But yeah, we just want to say that real quick. So,
and 400 comments we're totally cool with. So
we do that all the time.
Totally helped out.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Okay, you should check out Asheville Glamping, North Carolina. We stayed in a vintage Airstream there with Tempur-Pedic mattresses. Also had a hot tub and fire pit.
Oh my
Cute
gosh.
place for a weekend trip. They also have yurts, tree houses, and clear domes.
That's awesome.
That sounds pretty dope. I would totally stay there.
I've heard great things about Asheville overall. I know there's the Biltmore estate and stuff like that there. But I have not been. And
it's the one that your aunt-in-law? I don't know what. She wrote the Last Castle in America or something like that.
My uncle, who I'm very close with, his brother and sister live out in Asheville.
And his sister-in-law wrote a book called The Last Castle, which is about the Biltmore estate in Asheville.
Oh, is it? Cool.
So.
That's her most recent book, I think. But her most famous book is about the women behind. Yeah, Atomic Women, the women behind
the
Atomic Bomb. She her name is oh my gosh,
Denise
Kiernan.
Yeah.
Anyway, So,
I went to go see a reading of that book in New York City, which was really nice.
Yeah.
I got to meet her, which was cool.
Great couple.
Yeah, she's really nice. All right. Alan is saying at Megan Morris, good tip. We wanted to visit Asheville in the near future.
Yeah, I think I would love to even drive to Asheville if we can't fly for quite a while. So as I mentioned in previous live chats, there are 16 states I have not been to, and I really wanted to remedy all of those, go to all 50 states by the end of 2020. Probably not going to happen at this point, but maybe I can do it by 2021.
Hey, if August is good, busy month.
Yeah, we could do a big road trip. But North Carolina and South Carolina are very high on my list. I have not been to either of those, and certainly those are, of the 16 remaining states, really, really high up there. And everyone's saying Asheville's really pretty, so it sounds like that's where we should land.
Yeah, I've got some family out in North Carolina.
Oh, Stephanie, you read that book? Oh,
in South Carolina.
We know the author.
We know the author. Yeah. Which I have not read the book yet, but I heard great things about it.
Same,
actually. I really need to read it. Asheville is very pretty.
I often read nonfiction. I'm not a big fiction reader. Derek loves fantasy novels. So
I really like my trashy novels.
Trashy fantasy.
What can I say? But Asheville would be like a 10-hour drive from Chicago, which is not bad. I made the drive from New York to Chicago in one go. When we moved here, we loaded up we rented like a big like Suburban or something like that, and we loaded up with all of the stuff that we couldn't for whatever reason or weren't willing to give to like movers, so like the high value items of our household, basically our wine and vodka, and we drove that to Chicago. So that was like a 10-hour drive.
Yeah, can't destroy that arbitrage wine.
It's very important.
Yeah, importante. But interesting that it'll only be a 10-hour drive from Chicago. We should definitely try that.
I mean, I remember driving to North Carolina from Indiana.
Yeah, you have some family in North Carolina,
yeah,
I think.
Yeah. Which is beautiful. I mean, I used to love going there and just kind of like hanging out with my cousins with their southern accents and whatnot. It was a good time. A lot of fun. Yeah, wine, vodka, and movers. What could go wrong? I agree, Al. What could go wrong?
A lot of movers refuse to move alcohol. So
there's
we
laws
had,
with licenses and stuff.
When we were leaving New York, we had what we called our liquidation party. And
it was a good party that nobody remembers.
Yeah, we basically were like, all right, we have to drink this entire bar cart of alcohol. Y'all need to help us.
We had a lot of tequila to go through, and I think we went through most of it, so it was a good time.
Yeah.
We're popping bottles like crazy.
Woof. Anyway, so that's not about travel. We can pivot.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think we're probably coming to an end at this point, right?
Yeah, I guess we're wrapping up. Did we miss anybody's questions, by the way? Because I feel like there was a time frame that we had a lot come in all at once, but it might have all been marked. I don't know.
It might have all been, yeah. I went to Crazy Horse in South Dakota. It was pretty awesome, according to Eric Brown.
Oh, I also need to go to South Dakota. That's one of the 16 states I haven't been to. So I'll have to look up where Crazy Horse is. Is that a native? That's when we were talking about Native American reservations. I remember seeing that comment now. So I'll need to scope that out. So when I volunteered at Standing Rock, I don't think we ever crossed the South Dakota border. I think I was only on the North Dakota side of that reservation the entire time. So I feel like just because I'm uncertain, I'm not going to count South Dakota. And I need to go back. But what is really important is that we ended up investing in the National Parks Pass and the annual one in January. And so I know South Dakota has the Mount Rushmore National Park, and there's Badlands, I think, too. So we want to be able to get to that at some point this year, so that way, A, I can cross off South Dakota from my list, and I think Derek's list. You have not been there either, right? And B, we can utilize our National Parks Pass.
Yeah, so Germany Travel is asking, are you planning to travel to Germany when the virus is over?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I would love to go with the Berghammers. Shout out to Stephanie and Brian. But we just generally, I think probably top priority would be Munich. Um, Not only because the castles in that region are so stunning, but also both of us have family history from Bavaria, and would love like I mean I what I've found really interesting in the past year is that I got my 23andMe genetic test results back, and just learning about my family history has been fascinating. So I think just going back there and understanding that region. I also have family from Hanover. So I think that's how I would prioritize destinations in Germany, is those two. And then probably after that, Berlin, Cologne, and Dusseldorf.
Yeah, my family's actually from around the.
Gallivanting
Hey,
gals,
Gallivanting
welcome.
gals, how you guys doing?
Thanks for joining.
My family's actually not from the Munich area. My family's from the Frankfurt Frankenthal area.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's where the
I thought they were from
Norwine
Munich.
family's from. But I do want to go to Munich. Munich's the place within Germany that I really want to go to. I want to go to Oktoberfest very badly. And Munich's also, I know some people in Munich from like work and stuff, so that's kind of the spot I'd want to go to within Germany.
The Berghammers have been to Oktoberfest and wore their lederhosen, and I think that is so cool. Munich is cool. I use Garmisch.
Garmisch.
As my base, Garmisch is where the oh my gosh, I am going to completely mispronounce this.
Zugspitze is located. I love to swim in Lake Eibsee.
Eibsee.
All of Bavaria is awesome. Berlin is awesome too. Cool.
We gotta go. And
I need
should
to
probably like jot down these notes of exactly where to go to.
And I need to learn some German.
So it sounds like have you been all over Germany, Darian? We would love to know kind of what destinations you've been to.
He lived in
Schweizfurt and Gießen. Yeah, okay. Awesome. And Berlin is fantastic. What I think would be super cool is to see all the street art in Berlin. Yeah. I would find that fascinating.
Yeah, I think Berlin would be cool. Definitely, if you're looking at like Germany, like Central and more Eastern Europe, there's a lot of places in that like part of Europe that we really want to get to. Germany obviously being one of them. And then if you look more east, definitely Poland, Czech Republic, Slovakia, down into the Balkans, like all that stuff we'd love to get to.
Stephanie's saying there's a great tour provider for street art called Alternative Berlin. Oh, that's so good to know. We'll have to research that because that's something that fascinates me the most about Berlin is how the street artists have really been able to express themselves.
Yeah.
Okay, so Darian's saying that I was there as a kid as my dad was serving in the U.S. Army at the time. So my uncle and cousins were born in Germany. My uncle served in the Air Force there. So I didn't realize that we had an Army base there too. I'm sure I should have known that. But I suppose there's a lot of bases, U.S. bases probably in Germany. And Crazy Horse is near Mount Rushmore, says Eric. Yeah. Okay, cool. So now I can just cross both of those off when we go to South Dakota.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, there's a lot of places that we want to go to within the United States. I think that our expectation is that when things kind of ease up from a travel perspective, that we think that domestic is probably going to open up first. And once when that happens, we'll probably do a few road trips. Or at least
feel the most attainable first.
Yeah. So, our thoughts are within the United States, we probably want to figure out a few road trips, whether short or longer if we have a little bit more time, like a week or two, and then we'll probably go from there.
Yeah, we would love to do road trips as soon as they feel safe again, and we started this week actually looking up what that might mean, because I mean, a lot of you guys on this chat are probably similar to us, where we really opt towards flying over driving, so we're just not as attuned to all the opportunities within driving distance. So we started I started looking up, like, what does northern Wisconsin and the UP of Michigan look like, and what are places that people like to go to in the Midwest? Because we're in Chicago right now, and we'd love to be able to explore, at least for the immediate time frame, once we can do road trips again, within our own area.
Yeah. So Gallivanting Gallows is saying, we're coming to Chicago when we can, but also have some bigger ones on the East Coast, hoping for fall.
That's awesome.
Let us know when you come up to Chicago. We'd love to grab a drink or something. Gallivanting Gals would be fun. The UP is also on your list. That's fun.
I know it sounds silly, but like because the UP is so remote, I almost want to be able to be like, oh, I've been there. Even though it's like there's not a ton to do there. I know you can go to Marquette, and there's somebody on the Waltersville live chat that recommended another spot in the UP when I was talking about it earlier this week. So there's definitely places to go there, and I watched a TV show about UP travel at one point. But I've also heard that the weather on Lake Superior can be really changeable, and so you have, like, going during any sort of like winter, fall, spring time frame, you can get storms really quickly. So maybe summertime might be a little bit easier too. Fingers crossed. From a traveler perspective, we'll see. We'll see if we end up going.
Yeah, we'll see. I think that getting over to, at the end of the day, once like domestic travel kind of opens up, especially with like air travel, I think that getting over to like New York, LA, Hawaii would be a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. I was supposed to go to Hawaii this weekend. I should mention. I don't know if Brenna's still on. She was on for like a hot second at the beginning of our chat.
Yeah.
But I know she's in the middle of a move. So it's tough. But
about that.
Brenna and I were supposed to be visiting another friend of ours in Hawaii. Literally supposed to leave this weekend, and I hadn't booked any tickets yet because I was gonna fly standby, and we had our hotel all picked out and everything. And I've never been to Hawaii, but that had to, of course, get rescheduled, so hopefully we can figure out another time at some point, either 2020 or 2021, to cross that off the list and visit beautiful Hawaii.
Oahu. Yeah, but so I think things are slowing down a little bit, so if there's any more questions, let us know. Otherwise, we'll probably be wrapping up here pretty soon.
Let us know, Gallivanting Gals, too, where you're going, where you're planning to go in New England, because we used to live in New York. I've been to a lot of places in New England, and we're happy to give you some good recommendations if you need any.
New York's awesome, too, by the way. Like, if you have an opportunity to make it to New York, it's a great place to visit. We've said this before, but I mean, favorite places to just like go and like spend a weekend. Like, New York's a pretty good place to do that. So
sure is, and it's easy to get to from a lot of places.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, it's been such a pleasure to chat with all of you guys. So glad to have everybody on talking about travel, especially while we all are kind of grounded for the time being and in planning mode. And so Gallivanting Gals is saying, sounds good. We are actually doing more southern. We have done New York, Boston, and Maine. Oh, that's so great. So we've been to like Delaware, Maryland, Virginia.
Delaware's nice.
I think we're going to look at North Carolina and South Carolina as well. I've been to Georgia, Florida, but I mean, everywhere on the East Coast is stunning, especially fall time of year. So I think you're choosing a great moment.
Yeah. But otherwise, it's been fun. I hope everybody had a great evening. We enjoyed drinking our wine. I'm out, but we enjoyed it, and
so I think,
join us next time.
Yeah, and I think I just want to call out, I'm going to be posting a new video coming up soon about an interview with our friend about what COVID-19's outbreak has looked like in Argentina. And then we also, I know it's Easter.
Mainly as an American citizen, being in Argentina when everything happened.
Yeah. So also, I know that we have our live chats on Thursdays and Sundays. This Sunday is Easter. So we are still on track to have the live chat at the same time at 11 a.m. on Sunday morning.
I might have bunny ears.
Yeah, we might have bunny ears, but we'd love for you all to join if you can tune in. We were talking about rescheduling for a moment, but since everybody's stuck at home anyway, I'm assuming nobody's really going to be going to church or anything like that. And if not, we'll just talk to ourselves, I guess.
If nobody comes on, it'll be a very short one. So
but we want to keep it going. So hope you guys all can join then too, because we'll have our coffee in hand, and just want to wish everybody a happy Easter holiday too. Yeah. So thanks everybody for joining tonight. It's been a pleasure, and we really appreciate all of you guys.
And real quick, just before we go though, Eric Brown did just ask if we've ever been to Louisiana. No, we've never been to Louisiana, but Baton Rouge and New Orleans are both high on our list. We'd love to go there, especially to see the French Quarter.
I'm really, that's another one that I was actually supposed to go to this spring and not. So it will happen very soon. I think a lot of our plans have changed in this spring. So we'll keep you guys posted when we do reschedule that Louisiana trip.
Yeah. Well, thanks everybody for joining us, and we will catch you later.
All right. Thanks everybody.
Peace.
Have a great night.